So, our next speaker is George, who I only talked into doing this on Monday. So he's done it in a very short period of time, despite having a rather large pitch to put together. I won't tell you how much it was for, but it had a lot of zeros in it this week. Facts we have about George. 2 years ago, he attempted to climb the north face of the Eiger. Unfortunately, he failed, but he will be trying it again next year. Anyone stupid enough to attempt it, I think, deserves a medal of some description, despite the fact that I do very much hope you get to the top next year. His second and third fact are linked, because they're in fact the same thing. And the third fact is actually going to be the demonstration of the second fact. But he was telling me this morning, which he'll probably regret as well, that his PA says that when he's trying to block out the noise of the office, he actually tucks his ear into his ear to block out the noise. And I didn't really understand what this meant. So he said he'd demo it before starting his presentation, which is what he's going to do. So, ladies and gentlemen, George.
I thought I'd regret that. Just make sure I'm not doing it through any of the other presentations later on. Okay. Good evening. Thanks a lot for coming along. My name is George Taylor. I'm the Chief Executive of Digital Region Broadband. Digital Region, for those of you who don't know, is a very disruptive next generation broadband network which is exclusive to South Yorkshire, representing £100 million worth of public sector investment. And I'm really going to talk a bit about that and try and interlink it into some Sheffield culture. Before I do that, I'll talk a bit about my background. Before Digital Region, I was with a business called Adapt. I was there since 2000, grew the business from 4 people to 120 people, annualised revenues over 30 million, working with customers like Ubuntu, MTV, and Last FM, who I'm pretty sure you're all familiar with. What I'd like to do now really is talk a bit about culture, and I think it means different things to different people. So for me, culture in Sheffield is actually all about climbing. It's what I'm psyched about, it's what brought me here. And I think culture, to me, is something that has history, that has a community, that has some real spirit. And climbing in Sheffield has been going on since the 1800s. It's got quite a big scene here. The thing is, to different people, culture obviously means different things. A lot of people, when they think of Sheffield, think of the industry, you know, the forges and the steelworks, and it's something which very much was the case, a massive part of this city in former times, but times are changing, and quite rapidly so. And a point in case really is Forge Masters. The fact that the press, the 15,000 ton press, which was to be developed to work with the nuclear industry, just didn't actually happen. And that shows that government now have got less interest in heavy industry, and they're more focused on seeding investment into information-centric organisations. This is the Digital Region, £100 million worth of investment. This is a small chunk of real sort of bird's eye view of what the network is. Each one of these dots represents £30,000 worth of hardware, which is really an interconnect point into that super fast broadband network, which can deliver really transformational, powerful benefits to your business. The OECD defined culture definitions from broadband. I mean, reading it to you, broadband plays a critical role in the workings of the economy and society, connecting consumers, businesses, government, and facilitates social interaction. I mean, to me, that sounds quite cultural. But let's go back now to Sheffield. I think defining Sheffield culture now, its digital pedigree and its creative pedigree is quite important, and something that Sheffield is really bloody good at. And over the next few slides, what I want to do is talk to you a bit more about how what we're doing with our business, I think, can help drive development within that industry. Avatar, an amazing production that, as Greg was saying earlier, collaboration is a really important thing. Productions like that require a lot of collaboration because of the sheer amount of data that has to be processed to create this kind of imagery. That sort of activity happens over networks. Now, those networks are quite expensive to connect to. Things like SoHoNet. Richard's one of the directors there. He's built this global network for pre and post-production, where essentially people can collaborate to output content. We're extending SoHoNet into Sheffield and delivering it over our network. That's pretty exciting stuff to people in the creative digital industries. Google, I'm sure all of you are aware of it. You probably see it every day. I think 80% of traffic on the web at the moment passes through Google. We're looking to interconnect Google via fibre optic links directly into our data centres in South Yorkshire so that we can actually enrich the user experience and deliver a faster experience. Going back to culture, the Crucible, a real key part of Sheffield culture. What we're looking at doing there is we're working with Sheffield University on their Rehearse project, and that's all about digitising all the historic archive of the Crucible and presenting it as something that can be accessed over our superfast broadband services. If any of you recognise the background of this picture, but it's Park Hill, another iconic and cultural part of Sheffield. Biggest Grade 2 listed building in Europe, iconic 1950s architecture similar to the Barbican. It represents culture of the past, but it also represents the culture of the future. It's going for a huge transformative change at the moment to this, which is what developers Urban Splash have planned. They are bringing Park Hill into the 21st century, and we're working on projects like this to deliver 100 megabits of broadband into every single apartment, 974 apartments, which will be the biggest deployment of broadband on that scale, I believe, in the world. Forward to talking about broadband, back to climbing. Next few slides, really, I want to talk about a few challenges that I've experienced and challenges that I'm experiencing now. So Johnny was kind enough to mention my interesting fact about the Eiger. So going into a bit more detail about that, I came up with this harebrained plan. Essentially 1,800 vertical metres, the biggest, potentially hardest face in the Alps. That's what it looks like when it's in good condition to climb. You see lots of rock, not much snow. Unfortunately, despite my perfectionist planning, when we arrived at the bottom of the face, I think conditions could be described as suboptimal. So it took me, a bit stubborn, so it took me about 3 days to realise that before I got to about here that it wasn't going to happen. And failure was inevitable. So we disappeared in some little tunnel, which comes down a train line down the road. But that was a big challenge, and I think one of the biggest in my life. But now I've got another very big challenge, and that really is articulating the benefits of next generation broadband and what it means to South Yorkshire, to businesses and to residents. And that requires a cultural shift. And I need the help from people like yourselves to actually really engage with and understand what we're doing so that we can start to relay those benefits. Thank you very much.